I am ready whenever you guys are ready.
I'm good whenever.
Riley Jabour?
Can be good once I figure out the basics of technology. I'm just trying to get to like the page we had the questions on the document, but that doesn't seem to.
Why do you have two waters?
I grabbed one and then I was going to give you. Do you have one?
Oh, I do, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, now I've just got two waters.
That's fine.
I'm going to be very thirsty. Intense questions.
Yeah, I wrote that one down. Riley Jabour, why do you have two waters? This is Kingston Live. We'll be talking with Nick Babcock, who will represent Kingston on CTV's The Launch. Marc Garniss talks booking shows with KPP, and we speak with Bif Naked about her upcoming shows at the Mansion. Hello, this is Kingston Live for February 2019. I'm Johnny San. I'm here with Riley Jabour.
I'm here, 2 for 2. I'm still not fired yet.
Still, you made it. You made it. So yeah, second episode. And thank you to everyone who listened to our last show. Thank you for all the feedback, all the shares on social media. We appreciate it. You might be listening to us. We are first on SoundCloud. We are also, you might want to note, we're also on Spotify. We're on Google Play. We're on iTunes, and we're on Stitcher. And yes, thanks for the feedback. If you have more feedback, if anything you want to tell us, complaints, recipes, whatever you want, podcast at kingstonlive.ca. So, Riley Jabour, it's winter, it's cold outside. Where do you like to go for live music?
Ooh, I love the winter experience of live music anywhere, because there's some kind of weird magic about when you walk into a venue, and like at the same time as it being magic, it's also kind of a hassle when you have to hold your coat the whole time if it's somewhere without coat check. But there's something magic about walking into a room and it's warm, not only because of bodies, but it's warm because of the music, and you take off your jacket and your scarf and your toque and whatever, and there's live music just kind of greeting you like a living room. I love the winter vibe of going to the Toucan always. Just it's warm, it's cozy in there. It's cozy because it's
so narrow.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, well, the Mansion always comes to mind. That's another place where, you go in with your coat and it's going to get a lot hotter once things start moving. And I also really like Musiki. I just love being downtown. You're out, like even if you're going skating, you just kind of walk up the street and there's always something happening, and it's always happening right there, which I just love. So.
Yeah. For sure.
Those are my picks. Nick, what are your picks? We'll formally introduce you in a moment, but if you'd like to weigh in on this subject.
Actually, I was going to say Musiki. The one thing I like about the wintertime shows is being able to, like, when there's a window in the venue that is kind of behind or around, that you can see how cold and frigid it is outside, but you know that you're inside and warm and you're not having to go through that anymore.
Yes.
That is the best. So, like, in terms of wintertime, man, if you can get a venue with a window behind you, like, that's the way to go.
Riley Jabour, would you care to formally introduce our guest?
Yeah, sure. If you're looking out for musicians in town making big moves, our guest today should be on your radar. Nick Babcock has been hustling his music for a little while now, dabbling in pop, rock, country, and R&B. And after finishing Fanshaw's Music Industry Arts program, another Fanshaw boy, represent.
Hey, okay.
Yeah. Nick toured around Ontario and New York, playing keys for indie rock five-piece Kasador. He went solo, a choice that garnered him some well-deserved attention. Nick landed a spot on the second season of CTV's The Launch, where acclaimed songwriters, producers, and executives pair up with undiscovered Canadian talent. Singer-songwriter Jan Arden will mentor him. You can check out Nick's episode when it airs Wednesday, February 20th at 8 p.m. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with The Launch.
Sure.
How did you get involved in this?
I had recently left Kasador, the band I was in, and then started kind of working with another party at the time. And then about 3 or 4 weeks after all of that, I got an email from the producer of the show. Auditions were closed, but I think they were just kind of sending out some feelers here and there, and asked me if I'd be interested in just sending in some videos and kind of seeing if it was something I'd be interested in. Originally, I had said no, actually, because of what I was doing at the time. I couldn't be on the launch because of that. But after some reworking and some conversations that I had with certain people, ended up circling back and sent in my stuff. And a few weeks later, got a phone call saying I was on the show. So, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a weird process, but it all worked out. So
Yeah. I'm curious about sort of your very early in your career, because you started very, very young.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from? Because like I know most, guys in bands and stuff, sort of start in their teens, but you were very, very young. How did that come about?
It's funny. One of the questions they asked me on the show, which you'll see, this is the one spoiler we'll give away from the show.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. What was your earliest memory as a musician or performing? And mine, I couldn't remember at the time when they asked me, but it was, I knew I was 4 years old, and I was playing at my mother's colleague's retirement party, and I was singing a duet with my sister. I was 4 years old. She would have been 8 at the time. And I couldn't remember what song it was, or who the artist was, but now it is coming to me. It's Whitney Houston. It was a Whitney Houston song. It was like one of my mom's favorite songs. And at 4 years old, I remember. That's like my first musical memory. But in terms of like how this all got started, like both my parents are musicians. They met in a band. All the kids played, sang. It was just in our blood. It was interesting though to see the evolution, because it was never something growing up that was like, I'm gonna make this a business. I'm gonna make this a career. I'm gonna turn this into. It was just a hobby, It was just singing, and I thought everybody did that, in their living rooms. I thought everybody's mom was playing piano, and we were all singing the Friends theme song. But yeah, so that's that's how early it started, and then started writing songs, really getting into that when I was like 15, probably. Picked up the guitar at 12 years old. Like at 15, at that point, it was like, all right, music is something I want to pursue. So.
Having your parents as musicians, how did that affect your career trajectory and like shaping your influences, stuff like that?
I think one of my biggest attributes is my taste. And I remember at Fanshawe, my production prof saying, like having good taste is like the ultimate, feature that you can have. Be a fan of everything and just know what sounds cool, know what sounds good, kind of thing. So I get that from my parents 100%. Growing up, my mom always had like ABBA and things like that, and stuff with like a bunch of lush harmonies and just massive productions. My dad was like a big Beach Boys guy.
Well, on the subject of taste, that's kind of an interesting, perfect segue to what I wanted to ask about, in that you are making your way as a pop musician now. And pop, maybe it's just because I'm an outside observer for the most part, but it seems like it's gone through this interesting renaissance in the last 5 to 10 years, where when we were kids in the 90s or whatever, it seemed like pop musicians just blinked into existence and suddenly they're the biggest things in the world, right? You'd have NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys and the Spice Girls, just here they are, now they're huge. Yeah. Whereas now we kind of get to see this interesting progression of pop artists that we never used to see before the advent of social media and the internet, where you get to see guys like Justin Bieber go from like this kid playing on YouTube in Stratford to being the biggest artist in the world. And you see that with like guys like Shawn Mendes now and all these other artists, including yourself. Do you find that's changed the game for you?
Yeah, 100%, and positively. We live in a day and age, everybody keeps saying this, you don't need a record label, you don't need a manager, you don't need a booking agent, you have the internet now. Welcome to the year 2019, And that is the beauty of what's happening now. So you brought up like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and all, and Britney Spears, and everybody showing up in the blink of an eye, whereas that's not what people want anymore. Everybody keeps preaching now it's about the journey. Everybody wants to be a part of the experience. Everybody wants to follow along with you as you get to the A-list, if that's what your goal is. Everybody wants to tap into their artist at like 500 followers. Everybody wants to be one of those people who is like, I was there when he had 2,000. I was there when that first song came out. I was there when he was making stuff in his bedroom. That's how you develop, a fan base these days, and genuine people who want to stick with you and support you and spend the money on you and go see you live and travel for you. It's those people who are a part of the process and experience your growth as a musician and as an artist in your career. Once they like you, they want to be on that ride with you, you know what I mean? And then it's our experience. It's not my experience. It's, so.
Where can people see and hear Nick Babcock?
Yeah, you can hear me every Sunday night at the Brass Pub. I start at 11 o'clock at night. So if you can stay up that late.
I can now. Back on afternoons, man.
And then I'm at Canteen, which is the front half of Ale House, on Friday nights at 9. And then Milestones, it's Wednesday nights from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and it is their date night. So it's cheap bottles of wine.
Ooh.
Yeah, so bring a date and have some fun. Listen to me.
There's some contrast there. I was going to ask you about this because I find it really interesting doing those shows in the Hub at Canteen and at Brass and then Milestones. I feel like those are pretty different audiences just based on I can't afford to go to Milestones, but I like to go to the Brass because I can. Do you find the different audiences really influence like the sets you can play and the reaction you get from the crowd in each building?
Yeah, I'll toss in one more too. Occasionally, it's not a residency, so I just kind of hop on it whenever they ask me to. But I play at Moto Yoga Kingston. I want to make sure I get that name right. But and that's a really cool one too. I play in their hot yoga classes. So to touch on your question, yes. The atmosphere in the audiences are very different. It's very cool playing at like, the Brass Pub on a Sunday night. It's the only bar open in the Hub. So, all the students who are looking to go out and drink and party and get shit. Can we swear? We can't swear. Oh, yeah.
You can swear on this.
Yeah. And get shit-faced. Sunday nights, they're going to be at the Brass. And they're going to be looking to party. So you're playing all the bangers, all the, the Wonder Walls of the world and things like that. Milestones, date night, 8 o'clock. Bit of a different thing. I get to slow things down and kind of play a lot of the same songs, but just kind of switch them up. Maybe I'm finger picking them. Maybe I'm kind of just bringing the BPM down a bit, and do it a little more silky than I would at Brass, where it's just kind of hammered out. And then like the yoga classes are so much fun. Arguably my favorite gigs because everybody is just there to tap into, like, I don't know if either of you do yoga or have.
No.
The whole,
I will now that there's live music.
See, before I started playing these gigs, Krista, who's the original instructor who hired me for the first one, didn't force me, but strongly recommended that I take the class first before I actually perform for the class. So luckily it was just, they branded it as a stretch and unwind, so it's like very beginner and like there's not much to it. But I mean, the whole point of it is to like get in touch with yourself and like unwind and release all the stress. So everybody there is just trying to like release energy and just balance out their lives basically in that moment. And so it's cool to sit there and like my whole thing is like slow jams and kind of dreamy vocals and kind of like that's the kind of the Nick Babcock thing is kind of like sing your heart out kind of thing and sing into the hearts. So like yoga lines up perfect for me because I get to slow everything down and do it all, super dramatic and dreamy and seductively. So
I have to ask,
I wish the podcast caught the eyes you just made it on when you said seductively.
I gotta ask, what instrument are you playing at hot yoga?
Yeah, I bring my guitar. It is all the guitarists out there are probably cringing right now because it is hot yoga.
How do you keep that in tune?
Oh, the tuning's brutal. So I do try and like line up all the songs. So if I'm like a capo 3, I'm gonna try and do all my songs that are on this capo so I can say, because as soon as you take that off, oh, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you just. And I'm not plugged in anything. I'm just straight up acoustic and just singing. I mean, the acoustics in that room are unbelievable anyway, in the yoga studio. So I just kind of try and tune very lightly and kind of get through each string. And then it's not always perfect, but then I fire it up. But I mean, all the guitar I know, like, they're all cringing right now listening to this because, like, dude, you're just ruining your guitar.
Well, I've always had a hard enough time at Musiki in the winter when just somebody opens the door and you're standing right next to it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you gotta fix the guitar again.
Yeah. And like the last time it cost me, like, I had to get the whole thing refretted. That guitar is like another piece of me. So it's like, I don't care. I used to be like so careful with it and like place it in the case very slowly. Nothing's going to touch it but me kind of thing. And now the thing has like scratches all over it. People spill beer on it at Brass. It's been dropped. And I ended up snapping part of the sound hole, had to get that fixed. Now the whole thing, it's just got character. It's like, it's cool. Like, It's like, I don't care. I'm going to take it to yoga. It's going to sweat with me and deal with it, man. You're my guitar.
Nick, you've described yourself as a proud Kingstonian. What about Kingston makes you proud?
So I am someone who's born and raised in Kingston, born and raised in the West End. I actually, until I joined Kasador, I had never experienced downtown Kingston.
Oh, wow.
Like, I had never been out to a bar because if you think about it, I went to Fanshawe I was 18, so I still was under the legal age to drink, and I lived in the West End. So other than drinking, I really didn't have any reason to go downtown. So I never even heard of the Brass Pub until I started playing there like 2 years ago. So my whole point being, what I love about Kingston is like all the programs that we had growing up, going to school here as a kid, to allow kids to kind of experience art and kind of pursue that and kind of have some exposure. So we have like the Let's Make a Demo program that was at NDSS for a while. I was a part of that. We have the Limestone Learning Foundation, which is in Kingston, which people like Emily Fennell used to be a part of. I know Rob Baker did some stuff in the past. And then we have like LEAP here in the city, as well as the challenge program where kids are required to play an instrument. That's my background. That's how I grew up, and that's how I got into music, was because of programs like this. Obviously, it started with my parents, but then I got to flourish because these were available to me. We're so blessed to have these programs in place, because I know a lot of other places don't have that. So
I think that really speaks to the magic of the Kingston music scene too, where you can have those programs as a child and really inspire and spark your love of music and your musicianship. And then you go away to college and you do a little bit of growing, and you come back, and then there's that whole new world to discover.
That's right, downtown. Man. That's exactly what it was. It was like Kingston 2.0 for me. It was the weirdest experience. It was like I didn't understand that anything happened below Division Street. I didn't know that existed. I thought that was just.
I got to say, I love that these programs and these resources are in place. And any educators, politicians listening right now, yes, that stuff pays off.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Nick, just some quick questions then. Favorite place to play in Kingston?
Brass Pub. And Moto Yoga Kingston. It's opposite sides of the spectrum. So.
Worst experience on stage?
I did a tour when I was part of Kasador. Did a tour in Montreal. I was very, very sick. Was throwing up in between songs, and then immediately had to run off stage at the end of the set and just find a bush and just explode my guts into the bush. So that was probably the worst experience. Yeah.
But you got through it.
Always do.
The show must go on.
Always do. Yeah.
Excellent. Any advice to aspiring musicians?
Don't get hung up on old models. We are in a day and age where social media conquers all, content conquers all. Let people into your life and experience things with you. If you can make demos, if you can make good quality stuff in your bedroom, do it and release it and let people hear it, let people into your world. They will grow with you, and stay humble, I think, would be the number one thing as well.
The launch, what's the best thing that can come out of this for you? What's your hope with this?
Yeah. The exposure is going to be the biggest thing for sure, and introducing myself to the country. And also representing Kingston is really cool, just to show that we aren't just a rock and roll, city, and we have a lot more talent. Even besides me, there's a lot of stuff that none of us even heard. We were chatting about this earlier.
We were just talking about this before we hit record. We were talking about how there's just such a wealth of talent in this city, and some of it is obvious, some of it is less obvious, and some of it is just buried in rooms somewhere.
Yeah, and it's a shame. It's a shame when you don't know of it. If you can sing out there, if you can do something, my goodness, put it on the internet so we can see.
We want to hear you, and maybe we can put you on a podcast.
That's right.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And I believe you're going to play a song for us.
I am. Yeah.
All right. I'd like to point out this is the premiere of Nick's song, Standing in Your Doorway. Jay Middaw is here shooting it for us. You'll be able to see the video on YouTube, and there'll be a link on our Instagram at Kingston Live Music.
I know you're scared, and baby, that's okay. I feel the pressure building every day, and when your tears are working overtime, well, I'll be standing in your doorway. Oh, I know I'm not the perfect man, and I know it's hard to understand how I can hurt you and apologize, but then I do it time and time again. Yeah, well, I've been here before. No, I knocking at your door while you open up the window just so you can scream some more. Your father kicked me out and your mother says I'm bad news, but no one knows us like we do. Baby, this is you and me. Will it always be you and me? Are we right where we're supposed to be? Through all the games we play, will you be standing in my doorway, you and me? It'll always be you and me, just like it's supposed to be. No matter what they say, I'll still be standing in your doorway. Oh yeah, standing in your doorway. No matter where you are, you can always fall back in my arms. Even when you give me attitude, I know that you never mean the harm. Yeah, 'cause I've been here before, knocking at our door while you open up the window screaming I can't take no more, while tears are on your face and my clothes are on the front lawn. Well, I know you don't want me gone. Oh baby, this is you and me. Will it always be you and me? Are we right where we're supposed to be? Yeah. Through all the games we play, will you be standing in my doorway, you and me? Yeah, it'll always be you and me, just like it's supposed to be. No matter what they say, I'll still be standing in your doorway. Yeah, yeah. Standing in your doorway.
Some shows coming up the next little while in Kingston.
February 6th, Andy Schaff at the Isabel Bader.
February 8th, Rumble. It's Indigenous people in rock music. That's at the Grand.
February 8th as well. This is going to be a big one, a new album release show for Lost Cousins at the Mansion.
February 16th, Teenage Head is at the Mansion, and we have a pair of tickets to give away. For a chance to win those, follow us on Instagram at Kingston Live Music.
February 20th, The Trues return to Kingston, playing the Ale House.
February 21st, Paul Brandt at the Leon Center.
February 22nd, you got Gowan at the Grand Theater.
February 23rd, Amanda Rayom at the Mansion.
February 27th, Monster Truck at the Ale House.
February 27th, blues legend John Primer at Little Texas.
March 1st, Deux Trois at the Toucan. I hope my French is all right.
Bif Naked has 2 shows at the Mansion. March 1st is sold out. March 2nd will probably sell out as well. Get tickets.
Another probable sellout is coming out on March 4th. Mother with special guest Said the Whale. That's a big double bill. That's at the Grand Theater. Get tickets while there's still some left because they're going fast.
March 6th, Wild Rivers at the Ale House.
Also on March 6th, Ruben and the Dark at the Grad Club.
March 10th, Matthew Good at the Spire.
March 15th, Robert Cray at the Grand Theater. He's a blues guy.
March 15th, Wooden Sky at the Grad Club.
And March 29th, Jesse Cook at the Grand Theater.
Of course, there's live music every Monday at the Toucan, and Tuesdays are open mic night at Musiki and jazz night at Olivea. Wednesday is open mic at the Rosencrown with Tom Savage.
For details on these events and others, along with lots of other things to do, places to eat, and places to stay in Kingston, check out visitkingston.ca.
If you've caught touring bands in town before, odds are you owe some credit to our guest today. Marc Garniss has been bringing live music to town in one form or another for years. He founded Kingston Punk Productions in 2001, which has filled local venues with artists from all over, including names like City and Colour, Henry Rollins, the Arkells, and Dinosaur Jr. He played guitar in post-hardcore 4-piece I Hate Sally, and in 2013, Marc took the role of festival director with the Kingston Canadian Film Festival. Marc, thank you so much for being here today. And extra thank you because I know you're very, very busy this time of year.
Yeah,
we appreciate
you for having me. Yes, thank you. This is cool.
So you've had a pretty interesting career. How did you get started in all this?
So it would have started on the music side of things for sure. I was at Queen's, I think in my second or third year, and we started putting on shows essentially for our own band. So we were the promoters and the headliners at the same time. And then I think people in Ottawa and outside markets started to take notice that there was something happening here. And it really just spiraled from there. Like that's just the, step one, I guess, of what it eventually became. And, we then started dealing with bands that had agents and management companies. And, we were learning on the go, like to say the least, for sure. So we started dealing with, more, I guess, legit bands that had representation. And so the two sort of coincided for a while with the band and the concert promotions, just both sort of getting off and learning on the go at the same time.
Coming at a time where, like you said, there weren't as many shows yet. You kind of brought the shows here. Yeah. But back before you did that, what was it like as a Music City to you? Being a student, you do kind of live in that bubble and you maybe don't see what's happening in the wider community. So I don't remember a whole lot of the Kingston music scene back then. I would say overall, my sense is that there was far less activity on the live music front back then than there is now. To me, it seems like it's fairly strong right now.
Part of the impetus behind this podcast is we've seen that there's sort of this disconnect between there's sort of a dedicated music audience in Kingston, there's a casual music audience, then there's, the people who don't even know what's going on. And we've seen it with the Tragically Hip and more recently with the Glorious Sons, where they do gain a local following, but they don't seem to be part of the kind of collective local consciousness until they make it big, which is a very strange thing. You'd think they'd be household names before they get to that point. I'm just curious as to, if you have any thoughts on how we can sort of bridge that gap.
In order to see bands kind of go from what the Glorious Sons might have been like 3 years ago to now, I think is what I saw happen during that span. And I certainly was, we had them on a few KPP shows, but not a ton. They were always kind of doing their own thing a little bit and always seemed to have a draw. So from my angle, from putting my concert promoter cap on, I was like, oh, if we can get the Glorious Sons on this show, they're going to really help us fill this room for this bigger band. Glorious Sons were good to get on some of those bills, and, the headlining band's taking notice, being like, who's this local band that's like kind of out, who are they and they have the bigger draw here tonight. So I think a good thing for local bands to do is to try to get on some of those bills and get noticed and actually try to get a following and fill a room for some of these opening slots that they have for bigger bands, because they do notice, and I think that does get back to the right people sometimes. So I don't know if that's what happened for Glorious Sons, but I know when they were still up and coming, they always seem to have a pretty good draw for a local band, and I think they just people start talking. You mentioned venues for a second there, and let's roll back the tape to that, because you look at other cities like Toronto or Montreal, and there's less venues now. Things are closing, and they're very rarely reopening unless it's the El Macombo, which has been trying to reopen for like 20 years. Yeah. But Kingston doesn't seem to have that same effect right now. There's lots of venues, and even if we lose one, a new one pops up in its place, things like that. What do you think it is about Kingston that keeps that constant flow? It's always churning, but it's always seems to be pretty well balanced. Yeah, I think a lot of the music venues here also do other things well. So, for example, like the Mansion, which is one, they do have the restaurant on the main level, and they have the wine cellar where they have some parties and their nice patio in the summer. Like a venue like the Ale House has got the same owners as Stages and the Grizzly Grill, and they have not just live music happening. Blue Martini, same sort of thing. Grad Club, same sort of thing. They all have other things on the go. So I have a feeling for those owners, it takes some of the pressure off having to have live music in there 7 days a week. I don't recall there being any venues in Kingston that were just we're a live music venue. That's what we do. 7 days a week, we're opening and closing for bands. So who knows? Maybe something like that would totally do really well.
Do you ever get to just go to a show?
It's
and
weird.
just enjoy yourself?
Yeah. Yes, I do. But it's always weird. And if I see a show in Kingston, I always feel like I need to be doing something. And if even if it's not our show, I feel like I just need to be like ripping some tickets or I don't know, bringing stage water up to
Give
a
me
band or
something to
something. Yeah. Yeah, so no, we go to some shows in Kingston, but we get to see a lot of the good bands that we like just through shows that we do as well. It's nice going to shows in other cities. I think then that's like you definitely feel like there's no way you could step in to do anything. So
Yeah, they have security.
that's
for
right.
that.
Yeah.
We would be remiss if we didn't talk about the film festival.
yeah.
Very exciting event. Yeah, yes, that other thing that you
Forgot
do.
about
yeah.
that for a minute.
Yeah, tell us about the film festival. What can we expect this year?
It's always first and foremost going to be a film festival, obviously, but we always try new things every year. So last year we actually had a few podcasts, and this year we have I wouldn't say it's necessarily a theme or anything, but we have a lot of individuals from Canadian television series. So we have Jerry D. Doing kind of like an interview type thing. We have a couple of the cast from Baroness Von Sketch. We have K. Trevor Wilson from Letterkenny. So yeah, a little bit of a TV show angle, I guess. So those are three, and we have Bif Naked. She's going to do a spoken word thing, reading from her book.
And we'll be speaking with her.
She seems super stoked to come to the film festival, which is not always the case with some artists. It just seems like they're, it's part of their job. Like, I got to go do this. But like, she seems legitimately like stoked to get here. So yeah, we have 2 sold out shows with her. So these are all things that are obviously not going to the movies, but are part of the festival experience. And all these individuals have either been in movies or Canadian TV. So there's a nice connection to what we're doing.
Just speaking as someone who's not directly involved in sort of a casual observer, it seems to be growing every year. To me, it seems bigger every year.
It does, and it kind of just feels like a generic thing that you're supposed to say, oh, it's getting bigger and better every year. So we like,
But it is.
It legitimately is. The numbers do speak for themselves. Like the attendance is. I've been with the festival for this will be my. Holy smokes, this will be my 7th festival. So it has grown during my time with the festival for sure. And so yeah, more venues and more screening slots throughout the day. And I feel like it's just got a good energy to it. And we're getting some people, we're getting, I think, younger people out to the festival as well. Like students are always a little unsure of, whether they want to spend their limited funds on watching movies, but our audience seems to be getting a little bit younger, which is nice to see that, we'll have another generation of festival goers, I think, in the future.
So you've got a bit of a rep as one of the nicest people to book a show in the city. Lots of musicians.
I didn't even know that.
I've heard musicians
Really?
say that it's always nice to work with you because
wonder.
you're very accommodating, you're very kind.
Interesting.
Since this seems
I'm
to come
just
across as
taking this all
news to you, would you say that's maybe a byproduct from your years playing in I Hate Sally, playing shows and dealing with other promoters and
Yeah,
bookers?
so you see it from both sides for sure. And we've played shows to 0 people before. I remember we went to Hamilton one time and played the Underground at downtown Hamilton. I remember playing to 0 people there. I think the other band was there, so they had not paid to get in. But yeah, maybe I would say maybe that's the reason why people say I'm nice, is because I guess I can sort of see. You
can empathize with.
I can empathize with what it's like to play to nobody.
I remember this is like barely related again. I keep going on these tangents. But you guys, in I Hate Sally, you played my hometown. You were the only touring band that mattered that played Cannington, Ontario. Oh, wow. When I was in high school. My buddy Rob booked the show, and you guys played it on Lions Center. And like I was 16, 17 years old. And I remember thinking like, I hope these guys know that, there's like 800 people in this town and they're not all coming. Like, I hope these guys got their money worth.
So is Cannington north of Oshawa?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 45 minutes north of Oshawa, straight up Simcoe Street.
Yeah. No, those shows were always really good. I don't know if I specifically remember that one, but a lot of small town shows are really, really good because the kids in those cities, or sorry, those towns are not, they don't really have too many options as far as what they're going to go see. So if there's something happening on a Friday night, a show at a Legion or Lions Club, that's where everybody's going. So I remember playing a lot of those shows that were really good. I don't know if those still happen now, but they were very common, like in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. Like at least heavy bands were often playing like all ages shows in smaller markets for sure. I remember Lindsay, Ontario was actually a really good spot for us to go play. And I do remember a lot of good shows like in and around Oshawa as well. So that like little pocket of Ontario, I think we did okay in for sure.
What advice would you have for young bands, new bands? They're looking to get out of the basement, get out of the garage. They want to get gigs. How do they get booked? How do they get noticed?
Well, I think like make sure you're good before you go out and play that first show. I think a lot of bands do, as soon as they have like a half-hour set that they can all play sort of in time with one another, they're like, cool, we're ready to play a show. It's like, maybe just hold off a little bit and make sure you're all like playing like, exactly in time and exactly the same notes, and, just tidy it up a little bit. I think because you only get one chance to sometimes make that first impression. So if you go play a Saturday night at the Toucan, there's 100 people there that are all like knowledgeable about music, or if you have the right crowd there and you make that first impression and it's not the best, you might be remembered for that for the next while until you get a second shot. So yeah, I think the obvious one is just, make sure you're ready before you go out and play that first show. And then once you feel good about it, you might play for some audiences that don't like you, but that's okay. There will be other shows. It's, I think, feeling good about what you're doing before you go out and take it to an audience, I think is a big thing for sure.
Marc, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today and to talk to us. And thank you because Marc is actually the guy who hooked us up with the Teenage Head tickets. So once again, if you're interested in getting tickets to that show, follow us on Instagram. Marc, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
And you can discover all the great artists Marc brings to town at kppconcerts.com. And definitely check out the Kingston Canadian Film Festival, February 28th to March 3rd. For more info on that, visit kingcanfilmfest.com. And finally, Riley Jabour had the chance to speak with Bif Naked about her very unique and interesting career and about her upcoming shows at the Mansion.
Bif Naked joining us on the phone right now. Bif, you are coming to town as part of the Kingston Canadian Film Festival. 2 shows. Your first show is absolutely sold out. A second show was added. What can fans expect at these shows?
What we're doing is basically I'm going to bring my book with me. We will be selling books at the show. And we created an evening event that's basically me reading some specific stories that a lot of fans probably haven't heard before unless they've read the book. And then we sing the songs that were written about the story. It's a bit of a retrospective. I have a lot of material, so we go through quite a bit of it. But it becomes funny and emotional and a bit raw, and it just becomes a whole evening of its own.
And when you say it gets emotional and raw, that's totally understandable, as you've really experienced a lot of adversity and struggle in your life. You've had lots of different experiences that a lot of people either don't experience or hope not to have to go through themselves. How do you stay so positive? You have a really positive energy in everything you do, and that must take a tremendous amount of energy.
Oh, I don't think so. It's easy. No, it's totally easy. I mean, I think we all come of age and have triumphs and tragedies in life, and then as we get into college or get into our adult lives, things tend to go sideways a lot of the time. And all we can really do as individuals, is kind of try and be flexible and go with the flow. And, I mean, it's going to suck. But, if you can find the funny in that, it will really carry you through anything.
So you mentioned that you have played Kingston before, and how long has it been since the last time you played a show here?
I have no idea. We played there, I remember pulling that tour bus up in front of, 8 days? a million times. And I have some stories about playing in Kingston. I have several stories, in fact. So it does figure prominently in my storytelling for a variety of reasons.
Well, while we're talking about Kingston and talking about your career, you've been on the road to pretty much everywhere that exists. I mean, obviously, you're well-traveled. You've lived in the States. You've lived in Manitoba. You've toured extensively through everywhere else on the planet. And naturally, being a musician, you see a lot of music cities where music is very intrinsically linked to just the identity of the city. Is there anything you find that really helps identify a city as being like, this is a musical hub? This is the energy that the city has.
Well, I think obviously the history of the arts in that particular city definitely kind of, either rightly or wrongly tends to pigeonhole it in a way. Obviously, Kingston is a huge music town that has a great musical history and legacy, and even with new bands that are up and coming, it's just, for some reason, it's just one of those towns that produces really world-class bands. But not just that, obviously the university, they have a number of different programs that are pretty world-renowned. And the nightlife and Kingston itself is kind of beautiful. It's pretty notoriously beautiful, actually.
I like that. We're actually looking for a new slogan for the city. City Council just decided that. Notoriously Beautiful has this awesome poetry to it. You should submit that to the city of Kingston.
I should. And you can submit it. And not only that, it does tie in the history of the variety of institutions that were in place for many years. So it's notoriously beautiful.
Yeah. Well, one other thing you have a tie to in Kingston is you've done this new career, I guess you could say, in voiceover work. And now you can hear Bif Naked as a voice of one of the radio stations in Kingston. How did that come to be? I know you've been doing a little bit of voice stuff on the side for a number of years now, right?
I had been blessed with the gift of gab. I'm an elevator talker. I love talking. I never shut up. I got, my desk put in a hallway in school my entire life because I never stopped talking. So I think it really did prepare me for a life as a vocalist and a performer. And it's just a natural progression for me to go into voiceover work. I love it. Plus, I think you guys have the best job in the world, like, seriously. Radio or podcasting or any type of broadcast art, man, that's where it's at. You can wear your pajamas.
That's what I'm wearing right now.
See?
There's been an interesting renaissance lately where there's lots more women in rock music now than there ever has been. And they are, in my opinion, the most exciting acts in music right now. There's this new energy coming through, and you've had a career for such a long time in the music industry. What's that change look like from your perspective? What do you think has brought that around?
I think that the internet has just made it more visible more than anything else. I think it's always kind of been around, but it's, back in the day we didn't have YouTube and we didn't have everyone on their own Instagram accounts, and artists didn't have a Snapchat to run and all this stuff. And really, I think that it's changed the game. On one hand, anybody could be a star. Anyone who can sing into a computer can be a star. And in many ways, that's pretty cool because it will give kids a voice that wouldn't have otherwise had it. And on the other hand, it's a little bit easier for artists to promote their shows, to go out on the road and let people know in every town that they're there. And I think it's definitely a renaissance, not just for girls or women in music, but for music in general. And I think that I don't know, a lot of the pop people always say that rock and roll is dead. But rock and roll can't be killed. Like, it'll never die, because there's always going to be an audience that wants to go see live bands, and they want to get sweaty and jump around and just and sing along with the band. That's never going to ever go away.
Going back to how the internet changed things, I don't know if you've noticed this about yourself. I don't know if you Google yourself very often, but you have one of those names for a performer that Google kind of views as too risque. Like, if you type in Bif Naked, it doesn't have any suggestions because you included the word naked If that
I know.
if you were just coming up now, if this was the beginning of your career, would that have affected either the name you chose as a performer or how you shaped your career?
Bif Naked has been my stage name since 1988. Can you believe it? Like, I was in high school, and these kids from older bands that we were playing with started calling me Bif Naked, basically, and it stuck. And I've just always gone by that because all the punk guys had all their names, and it was just stuck. I don't even have another way to put it. And I think that now, if I went through the same life story, and my name was still Bif Naked, I don't know. I think there have been added pressure for me to be, more provocative than I was. Probably, I'm not sure. It's a weird world as far as image goes for artists and all the pressure that young artists have. I think it's probably much worse today than we were young. I mean, look at all these bands, these dinosaur rock bands. These guys are dogs, man. They're dogs. Like these guys are ugly guys, and they had beautiful songs and beautiful voices, and they really made it through. And now, I really wonder some of these really unique-looking individuals if they would have been given a chance. And the same goes for females. It makes me kind of, scared for young artists today because I know when I was young, there was a lot of different pressures. But luckily, for me, grunge happened when I was, starting out in bands, and there suddenly became, girls that were coming to the forefront. Kathleen Hanna and Courtney Love, and then on the other coast there was crazy looking Royal Trucks, and there's always something happening where girls weren't taking any guff. They weren't taking any guff, and I think today they have to probably take a lot of guff.
Yeah, true enough. You mentioned the pressures that come from the audience and from people putting pressure on you as a public body, but you are great at turning that around for the positive, in that putting pressure on people because of your commitment to several humanitarian efforts, and you're very big on social activism and telling people about causes you believe in. Do you think there is a duty of celebrities to engage in some kind of social activism and use your influence to change the world for the better?
Sure. I think that anybody, whether you have the biggest barbecue in your neighborhood or whether you are, your class valedictorian or whatever it is, if you have an opportunity where you're on a soapbox or you've got the microphone or the megaphone, then if you're speaking from the heart, you're going to talk about causes that you're interested in, and I think that this is contrary to popular belief, these are great times that we live in. Regardless of how it looks, there's a lot of dictators in charge of the world, all over the world. And I mean, it's a mess. It's a miserable mess in a lot of places. But for us here in Canada, we can gather and we can stand up for each other. And I think that, we've only really just begun to figure that out, and people's voices are getting heard, and it's incredible, the changes that we can help implement and push.
I like it. Fantastic. So before I let you go, are there any particular venues or memories about Kingston that you just absolutely adore?
Oh, yeah. AJ's Hangar. AJ's Hangar, where I lost my pants. And it wasn't because they came off. It's because a fan pulled them off. And if anyone's listening and you're a performer, you don't want to wear an elastic waistband on the stage. And certainly do not wear it in the mosh pit.
Bif, thank you for taking the time out of your evening to talk to me.
Oh, thank you for wanting to talk to me. We'll see you in Kingston.
This has been Kingston Live, recorded by Titan Sound in Kingston, Ontario. Hosted by John Sanfilippo and Riley Jabour. Writing and research by Peter Sanfilippo, executive producer Rob Howard. A big thanks to our friends at Tourism Kingston who helped make this podcast possible. Check out the latest live music listings and many other experiences our great city has to offer at visitkingston.ca. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a shout at podcast@kingstonlive.ca.